Okay. Technical difficulties there. And I'll present. It's a little slow. Okay, I don't know what's happening. It's loading. Does anyone else from my team have it up and want to try sharing it from their side? Eric, Lynn?
It's still loading on my side.
Let me try this.
That looks good.
All right.
Well, let's see.
All right. Can you guys see that?
I can see it.
All right. Perfect. So, Lynn, whenever you're ready to start.
There we go. The 5E lesson format is a format that's typically used across the board. We're going to share with you how we can improve teaching and learning with the SWH approach. And as Allison mentioned, here's our 4 partners, and it's been a pleasure working together. We are going to, oh, there we go. So what is different about the SW approach to teaching and learning? And it is about what the students are doing. And so I want you to listen to that as we're going through this presentation. We're actually going to focus on professional development. And so we have 2 of our partners who have had the opportunity to do a professional development setting. And so you're going to hear from them. But we want students negotiating. We want them negotiating with themselves and negotiating with each other. We want them arguing for their ideas, posing questions, and generating claims from evidence. And so those are the big words that we want. We also want you thinking about how often are students reading, writing, speaking, and listening. We're focusing on incorporating some of those, what I call in Iowa, disciplinary literacy skills. Everybody else has different meanings for what those are. Next slide, please. One of the places where we really got things moving forward was making a concept map. And this is something I'd like you to think about how you can use it when you're developing your units. You can use it as a pre-assessment and a post-assessment with your students. But the concept map really helps you to figure out how your ideas all fit together. And that's one of the big ideas with the SWH, is that we have our ideas in our head, what we've learned, and we want to make connections. And when we did this concept map, that was a place where it really moved our team forward, and we could see how it all fit together, because we have some folks that teach middle school, some other folks that teach high school, and then others that work with teachers. And so this was really our starting place for our extreme weather unit. And then lastly, on my part of the presentation, you may have heard me talk about the SWH, and I did a lot of the talking on our last presentation that we did for our team. I'm really glad to step out of the way and let people talk about how have we implemented this. But I do want to give credit where credit is due. Dr. Brian Hand is the person on the left. I have some links in there. I'll put those links in the chat. And he is the person with a couple of other folks who developed this SWH approach, or science writing heuristic approach. You've heard us maybe talk about the Learn Like a Scientist book. That's a book that can be gotten online. It was actually one of our big foundational pieces of our breakthrough with where we were going with this. And the person on the right is Jay Staker, and they were the co-author on that book. If you're an elementary person, The Questions, Claims, and Evidence is a book that I would highly recommend. So I'm going to step out of the way. Like I said, we've done a lot to move in this direction. And so what you're going to hear from is really how we've done some professional development, because if we don't change what happens in the classroom, we can't change what's happening for students teaching and learning. And so I look forward to hearing from my colleagues about how they have done this in their settings. And again, just one more thing. If you have some questions, go ahead and put them in the chat box. We're going to try to keep going and address things through the chat box. And I'll try my best to answer the questions. If we have some time at the end, which is going to be tight, we'll open it up for questions.
All right, perfect. Thank you, Lynn. So hi, everyone. My name is Lacey Simpson. I am in Miami, Florida, and my project partner was Eric Salma, who works at FIU. So together with our project team, we really focused on learning SWH, how to implement it, and the best way to educate other teachers on how to implement it. So Eric and I, we went ahead and we developed a PD, a professional development workshop that we went ahead and taught to 17 teachers locally here in Miami-Dade. It was a 2-day workshop, and it was funded by the OAS I-10 seed grant.
All right, thank you, Lacey. I'll take it from here then. And again, as she mentioned my name, Eric Salna with Florida International University and the Extreme Events Institute. We're all about doing hurricane research. And the picture behind me is what we call the wall of wind. It's 12 giant fans where we can create up to Category 5 hurricane conditions and test structures, all for research and wind engineering. So we as a team then decided to use this SWH approach, but with weather content, extreme weather content, and specifically hurricanes. And if you back up one slide, Lacey, to the national one, there we go, that one. So just kind of big picture, this is a map of the United States. It's a scoreboard, if you will, for 2021, how many billion-dollar weather and climate events we've already had. And they're all across the country. And the year's not over yet, but this whole issue of extreme weather events and connected to climate change around the world, but NOAA, the US government agency, just saying that, yes, extreme weather events are on the rise and we have to be prepared and we're all vulnerable to the effects. Next slide. So more specifically, when we leave the national look, we come to just Florida. And we look at the Florida scoreboard and you look at hazards of rip currents, waterspouts, thunderstorms, lightning, and hurricanes. Florida ranks #1 in all those categories for the United States. So certainly when it comes to extreme weather, it's a very important topic in the state of Florida. Next slide. So with that, I'm going to hand it back off to my teacher partner, Lacey.
All right, guys. So as you can tell, because of the unique makeup of our team, we really wanted our PD to focus on utilizing and teaching how to use SWH, but with that hurricane engineering approach. So a little bit before we start going into how we taught our PD, I do want to just go over what the SWH is. And the SWH stands for Scientific Writing Heuristic. So if I'm saying SWH, that's what it stands for. So the SWH approach is all about transforming students' thinking by transforming the science classroom. With the SWH approach, we're trying to get our teachers to move away from just verification labs and memorizations to different kinds of activities, conversations, and writings that mimic really what our real scientists do. So in doing this, our students learn to negotiate meaning both publicly and privately from the results of their very own work, and to argue their ideas by posing questions, gathering data, and generating claims, all based on evidence. Very critical to this approach is the emphasis on language, not just written, but oral as well, as they learn to negotiate with themselves and each other. This approach creates classroom environments where ideas are debated and everybody has a chance for success. The emphasis is on understanding and practicing science, not just memorizing those facts, like I said before. All right, so we started off our PD. Wait, I think I skipped a slide. I did. So here is the an SWH template. There are a few different versions of it, and basically you can adjust it. You don't have to follow the template exactly. It's more of a guideline of how you can possibly frame a lesson, or how to get your students thinking in this the way of the approach. So here's the one we used for our workshop, or that we shared with our teachers. This template specifically was, there's two types of questions that you can ask, researchable and testable. This one is, the phrasing is more towards the testable questions, but there are other versions that are aimed towards the researchable questions as well. So this was just the basic guidelines that we had shared. So it starts all with questions, right? So whenever you have an SWA lesson, you want to always start with your students asking questions. That's something that's not natural to them in a classroom. They're used to just being told. We want them to participate more, get their brains thinking, and ask the questions themselves. Then from there, we want them to act like actual scientists, do test, and then reflect on what they did in the test, what they found, what inferences can they make, what are those claims based on the evidence. Then we want them to go and negotiate, right? So we want them to read about how their ideas compare with others, and then of course, reflect on everything as a whole. So we started our PD, since like I said, it was all about hurricanes and extreme weather. We started with this image, and on the left, you can see a breakdown of the 2020 hurricane season. And on the right, we have a 2005 graphic depicting the hurricanes from that season. We gave our participants in our PD these two images, and we asked them to write 3 questions that they can think of when looking at this image. Now, when you're doing the SWH approach, it doesn't always have to be an image that you show. It could be a physical object, it could be a video, it could be anything really, just something to spark your students asking questions. So we presented this, and then we had them write it on a Post-it notes. We collected them, and then we went through them. We talked about the difference between testable and researchable questions, and then we divided them appropriately. Now, our whole point in this was we had our driving question that we wanted our students to start thinking towards, but at first we wanted them to give us their thoughts. So you can do this either way. You can have that driving question you're trying to lead them towards, or you can go ahead and just take their questions and pick one of theirs to go and investigate farther. Sorry, my clicking is off. So our personal big question was, how does climate change affect hurricane seasons? Because from 2005 to 2020, climate change has been a really big part of the news, a big part of scientific studies. So we wanted to go ahead and investigate that idea. Now, that was the whole point of our PD. Everything we did after that in the PD tied back into it. So here are the activities that we did, and that I'm going to quickly walk through. And we're going to go through pretty quickly because of timing's sake. So to start, Eric's just going to go over a little bit about the actual climate change affecting hurricanes.
Thank you, Lacey. And so as it turns out, the latest research with regards to climate change is suggesting that number one, hurricanes will be wetter because there's more moisture in the atmosphere in a warming climate. Number two, they'll be moving slower because of slower steering currents. Thus, the hurricane will drop more rain. And number three, rapid intensification due to warmer sea surface temperatures near the coastlines and sea level rise will also increase storm surge along the coastlines as well. And unfortunately, right now, we are all watching Hurricane Ida moving across Cuba. It's going to be headed to Louisiana and New Orleans. And on Sunday, it may make landfall as a Category 4 hurricane. So our thoughts and prayers are going out for the folks in Louisiana. And rapid intensification is expected with Ida in the Gulf of Mexico. So hurricane science, this is one of the topics we did in our professional development. There's a picture of Hurricane Irma from 2017, which was a Category 5 for a long period of time as well. So when you think about the recipe for a hurricane, what do you need? What are the ingredients? Well, There's certainly basic ones: moist atmosphere. You need an area of low pressure, no wind shear, which means light winds at higher levels, and certainly warm ocean temperatures. So what are the weapons of a hurricane? Well, once you have a fully developed hurricane, the weapons are storm surge, rip currents, tornadoes, inland flooding, and strong wind.
All right, and that led us into our first activity of our PD, which was about the strongest and weakest points of a hurricane. So what we did was after Eric presented all about hurricane science, the recipes and the weapons, we went ahead and we posted up this image and asked them this question. Looking at the image of the hurricane, what are two questions you can ask about its structure? So we started the whole process over again, trying to get them to think of some questions. Then from there, we took their questions, and a lot of them came up with the same ones, and that was what part of the hurricane is the strongest, what part is the weakest. So we did a inquiry-based activity where they went ahead and very simply, with a bowl, water, and a spoon, they modeled a hurricane, and with a paperclip tied to a string, they went ahead and dipped it in to test where the paperclip was moving the most, where it was strongest, and where it was moving the least, where it was weakest. And then we went ahead and we showed them the actual structure of the hurricane. Well, first, we got their ideas, asked them for evidence, got their claims, had them reflect, and then we went over what the actual structure is.
And as it turns out, in a fully developed hurricane, the center of the hurricane, of course, is the eye, but the eye wall, that's where the strongest winds are within a hurricane, just outside the eye wall. And then you have all the spiral feeder bands that we are going to have lots of rain and so on and so forth. So that activity certainly did get everyone thinking about the structure and the circulation of a storm. So the next topic was hurricane communication. So learning about the information and how to communicate it. The forecast cone, this is from Hurricane Irma, and there is now currently a forecast cone for Ida. But what does the cone mean and what does it show you? So we talked about that. So how is it created and the information? And it's created by a series of computer models that predict the track, and then they circle the models and create the cone. But beyond the cone, which only talks about geography, we taught them that you need to know more about the hurricane hazards that are going to come, including storm surge, and where the heaviest rains are going to fall. And there you have to look at other graphics besides the cone. And of course, storm surge is the biggest killer in hurricanes. Almost half of all fatalities are due to storm surge. Very important. Next slide.
So from that, we jumped into our second inquiry-based activity. And this one, remember, they all tie back into our big question of how is climate change affecting hurricanes? And like Eric said, there's going to be heavier rain, more wind, a whole bunch of different effects. So looking at that, we went ahead and we had our participants using a model learn about how wind speed and the depth of water would affect the heights of waves during a hurricane. So very easy again, low cost materials. We had a bin, they filled it with water, and then with the straw on top, they blew very softly and then blew very faster to go ahead and mimic the different wind speeds, low and faster, and then measured the differences in the wave heights. They also repeated this with shallow water and deeper water as well to go ahead and test the difference there. And of course, shallow water is where we have the higher waves.
And from there, we went to hurricane technology. How do we get the information about storms? Well, satellites, weather balloons, and the hurricane hunters, which fly into the storm.
And for that activity, we had our participants make their own barometer. And as you can see, it's just a mason jar with either plastic wrap or a balloon on top, rubber band together, and a straw taped on. And basically what happens is when there's high pressure, that plastic or that balloon is going to cave in. Your straw is going to go up, that's indicating pretty sunny, good weather. If the opposite happens and there's low pressure, the plastic's gonna puff up, the straw is gonna point downward, and that is going to be an indicator of not so decent weather, some rain.
And then our next topic went into hurricane engineering and mitigation. So how can we protect our homes? And first of all, what's the best roof shape? And of the three, gable, hip, and flat, hip roof is the most aerodynamic. And how do you hold a roof onto a home? Those metal straps which hold the roof to the wall of the home. And flying debris, very dangerous. This is a famous picture, Hurricane Andrew, of a 2x4 piece of wood through a palm tree. So we need to protect our windows with shutters. On the left-hand side is plywood, but of course on the right-hand side is metal. Metal is a stronger shutter. And of course we have learned, do not use tape. Tape does absolutely nothing.
And then that brought us to our one of our last activities, and that was using all that mitigation strategies, the different types of roofs, the shutter ideas, and the hurricane straps. We asked our participants to build and test a balsa-wood house. So there we have some of our participants building them, and then we tested them with a wind blower just to see where the weaknesses were, which ones would blow away, and how the mitigation helped make the buildings more sound.
So that was our professional development. And now we're going to share with you our team from Jamaica. And Katia is going to talk about their professional development that they did.
Sure. Thanks, Eric. Thanks, Lacey. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Katia Cunningham. I'm a teacher at Acroskis High School, and this project was done in collaboration with the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information by way of Mr. Sadfa Bennett, and myself and Mikhail are also a part of the team. So what we did was to conduct a professional development session with our STEM teachers here in Jamaica, with the aim at sensitizing the education system about the SWH framework, while providing training to achieve competence in integrating the 5E lessons into the SWH framework. Next slide, please. So for this particular professional development session, it took approximately 10 hours of intensive training, and we saw about 260 STEM teachers participating right across all levels, to include primary, secondary, and early childhood. The modalities that we used were primarily synchronous, and these were done as presentations or collaboration within Google Classroom, as well as group discussion. And our participants also had to submit a final assignment piece, which looks at integrating both the SWH and the 5E. Next slide, please. So from this professional development session, what we hope to accomplish over the next couple of weeks is to have a website up and running. We already have a draft of that website, and we're going to be adding those lesson plans there as resource materials to assist teachers. In the long term, we hope to also upgrade the Google Classroom that we're currently using, and to facilitate further training for teachers, for all teachers, so that they're able to access the information. So that is where we're at, and that's what we're looking at currently as it relates to our professional development and how we were able to integrate the 5E and the SWH approach and expose our teachers to that sort of hybrid lesson plan writing. So thank you very much. Over to you, Lacey.
So this is Lynn. I'm going to interject here. One of the things that I'd like to add is that in both instances, there was immersions in professional development. And so you noticed with Lacey and Eric, they actually did the activities, and the activities could be done to help understand the concepts as we're trying to do with teachers, but those same activities then could be done with the students, and as they are trying to figure out the problems to these the solutions to these problems actually. And then the other thing that I want to mention is that we want the students doing the work, so we want them doing the experiences, and we did this both with Eric did it with the PD, and Lacey with the teachers. Kadia, Sadfa, and Mikhail did it with the teachers. I actually was one of the, I actually led a PD session where I did an inquiry, an activity, and they told me what to do. So I just did basically exactly what they wanted me to do. And so that was a way of doing an inquiry experience from afar, right? I'm in Iowa, and the participants were in Jamaica. And so those are two things that I think we'd like to advocate for, is how can we do PD immersions to help teachers understand, and how do we get our teachers doing those practices where they are doing those things that are part of the framework of the SWH. And I think at this time, team, I think we're done with our presentation. I'm not sure, Allison, if we have time for questions. I've been monitoring the chat and I haven't seen any questions. I've been putting some links in there where you can actually hear from Dr. Hand himself, and you can hear from teachers who are implementing. I will add that, and we didn't put the template in that had the 5E approach and cross-referenced with that. I will find that link. I've been trying to find that link. I don't have it right handy, but engage, explore, explain, elaborate, and evaluate. As you can see, and maybe you can see, and as we were discussing this, where that might fit. And so we think it's an easy way of making that jump from the 5E to the SWH. And I guess we think that I should ask them if my colleagues think that it was what that jump was like.
There is a question in the chat, this is Hillary, about the Google Classroom being available. I know we can make the website available, but will the Google Classroom be able to be available outside for teachers that are outside of the project?
That's a good question. For right now, we were focusing on teachers in Jamaica, but I can see for the near future that yes, we'll be able to expand it and open it up to persons outside of Jamaica so that everybody can benefit.
And as I heard the last session finishing up, I did hear that presenter talking about how they want to continue this collaboration. I think our collaboration is going to go through December, but I do know for me, I would like to find ways to support educators in the Americas. I am working on getting the book available and translated into Spanish. That's been a bit more of a challenge than what I thought, but I am making some headway there. And so the book is available online for $5 in an online version on, I don't know if it's on Amazon. I'm not sure exactly where it's at, but if you just Google the Right to Learn. But I would be interested in exploring ways that we could have more in-depth conversations about what this is and what it looks like.
I also just want to know, I see a lot of you saying that you're not science teachers, but finding ways that this can help you. We have talked about it within our group, how this method, even though it says science in it, can be utilized in different classrooms.
Yeah.
All right, and then I think we have like 2 minutes left before we finish. I really want to thank the whole project team. I've had a great time learning with all of you. You really taught me a lot. I want to thank Allison for being our fearless leader and keeping us all on Zoom and on time and sending us our links when we need to. And besides that, of course, we want to thank ITIN and OAS for giving us this wonderful opportunity to meet each other and, of course, present and share our ideas with all of you.
Wonderful.
Vari and Hillary.
Yes.
I was just going to see if Vari and Hillary wanted to chime in. Vari and Hillary, do you want to chime in on what you've implemented in Fairfax County at all? I know Vari has done some things and had some conversations about not being just focused on science.
I was waiting to see if she was going to jump on. Yeah, what we've been doing is taking the pieces of it and implementing them. Like, we haven't gotten to the point where we have done the whole process at one time with our students, but we're taking the pieces and implementing them kind of little by little, trying them out just to see how they're doing. And we're finding a lot of great success, especially with the beginning part, with the questioning and finding that kind of anchor phenomenon that Lacey was talking about. They showed the pictures, but like she said, it doesn't always have to be a picture. It can be a video. Actually, this next week, we are going to do a crime scene. So we're making a mock crime scene that is going to be kind of the anchor phenomenon for learning about properties. So we're having a fun time with that and really getting the kids to, like Lynn and Lacey both said, come up with the questions on their own. So not giving them what they're learning, but they're developing what they're learning on their own through questioning.
And we had Natasha made a great point. Natasha mentioned that she's not a teacher of science, but she's able to use content from the session to teach language arts, to focus on skills and not content. And I couldn't agree with that more. We get so wrapped up in that content and we forget about those skills that are going to really, if you listen to Dr. Hand, click on that video link. It's really about critical thinking skills. How can we be critical thinkers and use that critical thinking to make good decisions, whether it's about something to purchase at the grocery store or something to use in your classroom. Thank you for that comment, Tasha.
Great. Well, thank you so much, team. Any last final comments from the team? We need to wrap up here.
We will miss you, Allison.
Oh, I will never be.
Allison is one of the best leaders that I've ever seen, and she can collaborate with a team like I've never experienced. So it has been a distinct honor being part of this opportunity.
Well, thank you, Lynn. That means a lot coming from you. After a couple of years, I'm surprised you still say that. Thank you.
No, I totally agree as well. And if I may, Allison, just to put a quick plug,
Yes.
Our Spanish language hurricane website, very informative, and it's at huracanes.fiu.edu. It's a great resource on hurricanes in Spanish.
Is there any way to put that in the link quick so people could capture that? There, and Eric has some, there's some awesome resources on the hurricane, on their FIU site. And we did believe that hurricanes were the really important thing, and beyond hurricanes, extreme weather. And so that is something that we think that is important to everybody. I survived the derecho. If anybody heard that on the news, that was in Iowa. And we all know, we're all experiencing, there's so many more extreme weather events happening.
Yes. Well, with that, we should probably end here so that we give time for the next team to come in. But I do really sincerely want to thank the team. This is their second year with us as well, and they've done a lot of work. I know this is only a 30-minute presentation, but as those of you who are educators, I'm sure you can tell how much work would have had to have gone into this. And this is a volunteer program, so imagine. Also, people coming from all different backgrounds, different cultures, as I'd mentioned. It's quite the endeavor to join a team like this and put this extra work in. And I am eternally grateful for the dedication from you all and constantly keeping up with the work, no matter how hard times got. And I'm super grateful. It's been an ultimate pleasure. So thank you, team, for this excellent presentation. Participants, for the rest of you, please stay around if you'd like for our next presentation. It will be in Spanish, but there will be interpretation for English and Portuguese. I'll go ahead and share a final slide with you all just so that you have some information on how to get to our agendas, which will provide you with all of the details that you need for accessing GatherTown, which is the platform we are using for the other events in the seminar. But we have plenty of events left through the next couple of hours, as well as tomorrow morning. So please do check the detailed agenda for different events that you may be interested in attending. And please send us any, you can contact us and find our information in the agendas if you'd like to reach out to us directly with any questions. So thanks again, team, so much. Very proud of you and the work you're doing, and very grateful for your time, effort, energy, and contributions to the STEM teaching world. So thanks, everyone. We will see you all in the next session.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.